OMG, baby, tell them.
Hey there, welcome to Powered by Backers. It is me, Justin. I am joined here by my buddy, Chris Karram. Chris, welcome to Powered by Backers.
Thanks, brother. Glad to be here.
All right, cool. So yeah, we'll catch up a little bit. So Chris and I actually know each other personally, but thought I'd bring him on the show. So you are the co-founder and chief strategy officer for SafeBridge Financial, and you are the managing director of SafeBridge Private Wealth, and a Bills fan. Hence why I wore the Bills golf shirt today. We're both big Bills fans, so we've known each other for a number of years, probably like 20 years now, back in the university days, right?
Yeah,
so 20 plus years. Yeah. Cool. Great. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. So tell the audience, I probably bastardized a little bit. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what brought you to be where you are today with SafeBridge.
Well, I appreciate that. Where we are today is hopefully just somewhere in the middle, and we're still, moving forward. But SafeBridge Financial Group is really a financial planning firm that starts with the mortgage and then builds financial planning, insurance, wealth management needs around the client's needs, centered on their most important decision for most people, which is their mortgage.
Right.
So we started that back in 2006 of all things, and been 14, almost 15 years now, I guess. And recently we've carved out our SafeBridge Private Wealth offering, which I'm really excited about because it really is something where we help emerging affluent and high net worth families stay on the growth trajectory, but also enhance their growth trajectory. And one of the major reasons we've done that is we've just realized over the years, we've built a great business practice. We've built a great firm that does really, really great work for clients across Ontario and frankly, the country. But we've also identified that there's a lot of those clients that are in need of, a more strategic, a more tax-focused, a more sort of personalized level of service that we've been working with all along. But now we've just really put a brand around it and some bookends around it to really say, okay, how do we make sure that this group of individuals whose needs are just as complex as the ultra high net worth in terms of moving parts, tax planning, structure, and otherwise, how do we make sure their needs are taken care of? Because they are a little bit different than the person who's just simply trying to buy a basic insurance product or a basic mortgage. They're moving money around a lot. There are a lot of different business entities, a lot of different structures. So, we're really just trying to make sure that we can meet the needs of our family market clients, but we can also meet the needs of our more complex, emerging affluent clients as well. So it's
cool, awesome. So let's go into let's look at 2006.
Yeah.
You started SafeBridge with your partners. Let's go into that mindset. Let's just take it back, the hot tub time machine. Before you do that though, let's do a little show the helmets. Let's show all the fans. You've got one. There we go. The mini. Who's yours? Thurman, right?
Thurman Thomas, baby.
Thurman Thomas. There you go. Josh Allen. Little Bulls mini Bills.
That was actually
helmets.
By my business.
What's that? Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. I've had that there for a while. And then I've got that Raptors ball is actually signed by the entire team from the championship season. I bought it before they won, in fairness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
now it's pretty cool to have it. That's the team. There you go. Sweet. Okay, so hot tub time machine, back in time, 2006. Walk me through, walk the audience through your mindset. Like a lot of the people that are going to be watching this are entrepreneurs. They're just on the sort of, they're hoping to get where you are 15 years later, but they're just in the start, maybe the first couple of years, thinking about starting a business, thinking about going out on their own. I know for your perspective, but you can tell it better. I know you were a financial planner or sort of in that realm. So you were sort of had been in that. So tell us a little bit about the thought process. What made you jump from arguably working for someone else and to then deciding to do your own thing?
Yeah, it's a big loaded question, obviously. But, back in 2001 is actually when I became a financial advisor by trade.
Right.
Licenses, I was able to secure those. And so I started working with clients, helping them manage their insurance and manage their money. And I did that for about 4.5 years with a company called Cleric at the time, which is now Sun Life. And, I loved it. But, I also realized that personally, I had a desire to have a little bit more control over our brand. I wanted to make sure that from a client perspective, I wasn't really having to force them into a specific product lineup or option lineup that was only restricted to the company that I worked for. And so a partner and I at the time, we actually chose to leave Sun Life and really start our own business. And we had a few different names we came up with. This is the one we landed on, which I'm thankful for because it's
SafeBridge, a great name, great brand, great like for everything. Yeah.
Credit, but it's thankfully it was a joint effort, and he helped me. He really came up with a great one, frankly. But that took place, and my partner and I parted ways. He went back to a different industry, and it gave me a chance to sort of forge forward. And since then, very early, I met Alicios again, who is a long-term friend of mine. We've done exchange of business and helped mutual clients. And, his situation presented itself, and which mine did as well. We were both, independent free agents, so to speak. And we realized that this was an opportunity for us to finally come together, provide a really holistic approach for our clients, but not just talk about it in spirit where we say, okay, you're a mortgage guy, I'm an insurance guy. Let's just run the business and keep them separate, and we'll just send each other a couple of leads here and there. But we could actually really get intentional to bring it under one roof, really bring that sort of cohesive client experience together, and arguably put an environment in place where a client who chose to could get their mortgage insurance or wealth management needs serviced through our firm, but in a way that it actually felt more like a bank, but with options, as opposed to just a referral arrangement. And so for us, it was just something we talked about for years already between Elise and I. And when the opportunity presents itself, it just made a lot of sense, frankly. But I guess I've already answered that question. I would say what
drove you? Let's think of the mindset. Like 2006, what's the mindset? What's going through your head? I know it's the independent side, right? Like, how about maybe the fears? Like, what are some of the fears that you're feeling? Or like, what are some of the, I'll go with this one. This is a good question, probably. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome that you just woke up and were like, I don't know if I'll be able to get through today? Did you have any moments like that as a early entrepreneur? Or do you still have those days sometimes? I don't know.
Hey, it's one thing to look back on 06 and try and figure those days out. But the truth is there's multiple days like that to this day where, numbers might be a little bit bigger and the relationships are bigger and longer term. And, we're talking about bigger opportunities and otherwise. But the fact is, it still brings with it those days where, when something like COVID happens, which everyone's experiencing, that's a scary time for anybody. I don't care how long you've been around, like it's shutting down countries, it's shutting down industries, it's shutting down businesses around the world. So, in any situation, there's always fear, and there's always moments in which you have to ask the question, like, one, is it worth it? And two, is it going to work? But I think, there are a few things that drove me. One was independence. We really wanted the ability to do something that we felt was a little bit different. And we really believed that pulling the mortgage advisor and the financial advisor together, of which we have many of now, but bringing those together to help serve a client's needs was an extremely valuable, unique offering. And at the time it was, today it's a little more common, but even still, it's not done exceptionally well. So we do see that there's a huge value in that still. But driving was, I just wanted to build an environment where I felt like we had the ability to influence people for the better, both as clients, but also, other people who were trying to build their own business. We really wanted to help people grow. And in the environment I was previously, others had been able to invest in me, which I was very grateful for. But the fact of the matter is, I wasn't in a position where I could go out and build something, a community or an environment in which, within that model we had, we could help people grow. We could help people exceed. We could help them excel, in terms of their own personal goals and otherwise. And so to this day, I'd say one of the greatest joys I have, and I would know this is true for Alicios and myself, we've got a lot of mortgage advisors, for example, who, have reached like astonishing heights in their careers. In fact, last year when we did the stats, our average mortgage agent increased their personal revenue by over 25%. That's a huge sign or indicator.
Yeah. How many agents do you guys have across Canada?
Just about 40 now.
40 now? There you go. That's,
Yeah, but to see those guys and see those girls like really like come in with a certain expectation for what they were trying to accomplish, and then between our culture and really quality people, community of people who actually want others to succeed,
right? And
there's certain tools and certain opportunities in which we can help them succeed and coach and mentor and keep people engaged. To see them continue to just reach new heights, is honestly, it's what drives me now. That's for damn sure. So
yeah.
It's pretty special. But there's lots of fears along the way, and the question mark is,
you're like me. Look, just go like this. You and I are the same age. I can see we've earned some of those grays right along the side. I got them in my goatee. That's sad. This is my COVID beard, but what's that?
You can't grow enough facial hair to even grow a proper beard, so that's why I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots of fears. But I think one of my defining, I don't know if it's going to be beliefs, but realities is, I said from the very beginning of when I became a financial advisor, at which point I was on my own. There was no salary. No one was guaranteeing me anything. And that was when I was 22 years old. I said then that I was never going to leave because I was forced out of this industry or this business. I was only ever going to leave if I felt like I had accomplished what I needed to accomplish, or I was in a position where, I wanted to move on to something new. But it was always going to be my choice. And I had clients for years ask the question, and maybe even to some extent today, like, what happens if you're not around in 3 years and I need some help with my insurance or with my RSPs, or I need to revisit it? What happens if you're not there? And as I said to them, and as I've said many times over, if I'm not there, it's because someone else has replaced me that's as good or better, but I'm not leaving just because I didn't make it. And I was absolutely focused on making sure that one way or another, I came out of this.
There you go. Succession plan. That's kind of an interesting topic. We've probably never talked about in this realm with, we've had a bunch of guests on. That's kind of the latter stage of business planning, right? Have you gone through, obviously as a financial planner, advisor, working in that space, I'm assuming would do that for your clients. Have you done it for yourself? I know you're still young. You're young enough. Like I said, we're the same age, but have you thought about that succession planning for, 10, 20, 30 years from now, or, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. We're not a firm that's really looking to sell our business today, but as a firm that does help people manage their current wealth and protect that from market volatility and from tax erosion, loss of income. I mean, we have to have those conversations with business owners who we do a lot of work with. So of course we've had that discussion. We've put some pieces in place to make sure that if something happened to myself or my partners, obviously, the right mechanisms are there to make sure.
So what are, if you can go right into it, like not specific to yourselves, but what are some of the mechanisms that maybe a business owner should be thinking about? This is free advice you're giving out, and you're welcome, everyone, for me asking it. But go ahead. Give us like some quick tips, like for me personally, or for anyone watching, like what's some things that, your businesses start to doing well, it's picking up, whatever, even early on, you're just starting out. What are some pieces of the puzzle that you should put in place for succession planning or for sort of the longer term?
Well, if there's more than one shareholder, there's no doubt a strong shareholder agreement is necessary. It's a tough conversation. Usually you involve a lawyer. You can do it where they've kind of given you a preconceived or a checklist of questions to work through, or where they do it with you depending on how deep you want to go. But being able to identify what happens with your shares, something like a buy-sell agreement, for example, is a huge thing that people just neglect. I know I've met many clients where in one case, for example, there were two cousins. The cousins owned the business. One cousin passed away unexpectedly. Now, all of a sudden, the shares of that cousin were left to his wife, which is great because that's the whole purpose. You build the wealth within your business so that your family's taken care of. Problem was there was no shareholder agreement. And so because of that, the wife kept the shares, but then as a result, stayed in the business as long as that business was around for another 20 plus years. Challenge with that is she wasn't bringing anything to the business. She wasn't adding value because she wasn't working it like her late husband had done. So now you've got a surviving business partner who's got a business partner who is doing no
Partners
work.
with the wife, yeah, right. Exactly.
And she's not doing anything. So problem is he's paying her, he's having to take care of the business and take care of her, which he would have done anyways. And it could have easily been solved with a shareholder agreement that said on death, something happened to either one of us, shares will be purchased from your surviving spouse with the money that is injected into the company from an insurance policy. So now what ends up, the end result for both business partners is the family gets protected, which is obviously important, especially if business partners who care about each other. You always want that person's family to be taken care of.
Right.
But you also then buy back the shares, which means you now have control to run the business. You're not dealing with a silent partner who should be an active partner. You're not dealing with somebody who thinks they know how to run the business when they've never been involved with it. It protects a series of different
and
issues.
it doesn't cost the business an exorbitant amount of money to buy out that person because it comes from an insurance policy that you've been paying into, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that insurance policy can inject capital into the business that can then be paid out in a lot of cases for almost completely tax-free.
Over a period of time. Yeah, exactly.
Or immediately. And that's to your point, that's one of the questions that you work through in a shareholder agreement is, do you want to pay it out lump sum, or would you rather see it be paid out in the form of an income over your 5 years?
Well, sorry, but I meant the other side. So obviously the spouse surviving spouse could get it in a lump sum or paid out. What I meant was the actual paying of the like the insurance policy, right, is paid out over a period of time, right, as a premium, right? So you're paying it out
month over month or year over year.
And then
very cost effectively, or you can use it as a wealth creation tool as well, where there's tax benefits for really thriving businesses that have capital in their account, they have cash that they're paying tax on. A lot of those individuals, and even in a wealthy situation, will actually move those funds into a life insurance policy, which makes them tax free. But it's still there to protect the business if something ever happened and there's a need for injection of capital. So lots of different designs and structures, but making sure that shareholder agreement's in place and there's an insurance to cover it is huge. Because in a lot of cases, if a business doesn't have the capital available to pay that person out, the business can literally just disappear because one partner passed away unexpectedly. And if you're in business, that's not really why you're building it, right? So,
exactly. You want to take precaution. There's definitely steps to be taken. That's an interesting one around the insurance, insurance policy to cover sort of a buyout of the other partner, which could probably, I mean, is that applicable in a, let's say the partner that like some sort of dispute between partners? So not necessarily one dying, obviously, unfortunately passing away, but let's say a dispute, like a resolution, like a shotgun, sort of strategy. Is there insurance to cover things of that nature? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but
no, unfortunately, there's no real insurance that will protect that problem. But the shareholder agreement would, and it would dictate and spell out how the process would look and what steps should be taken if there was a dispute and if there was an eventual buyout of a partner. And I think that's an extremely important thing to have. Everybody has good relationships. Everybody goes into business with people they like, kind of like people get married. Generally, you start off loving that person. So,
hopefully, supposedly, right? That's the idea.
But if you don't 20 years later, it's because of something that's happened since you started, right? So putting things in place when arguably things are good just helps make sure that everyone's on the same playing field and you take as much opinion and emotion and perspective out of it, and it can be a pretty clean cut, split if it's needed. It's not fun, but if it's needed.
And it's a tough discussion to have, but like you said, it needs to be had, and for all partners, right? We talk a little bit about it with some of the issuers on our platform as well. Obviously, shareholder agreements, articles, and going through the classes of shares, having all the regulatory stuff, ironed out so that everyone knows and understands the rights of each class of share, which is one of the things we talk about too, is you've got like voting, non-voting in the same two different classes, right? So, one of the models we use is Canadian Tire. So they've done it very well. One of the most respected shareholder agreements out there, and they've got a voting and a non-voting class. So we kind of model things after that when we talk to people. But it's interesting. I like the insurance side of it. We don't talk a little bit about that or at all about that. So that's a interesting take to
you're not alone.
To definitely look at.
And one of the things that's become really obvious, and one of the reasons we built SafeBridge Private Wealth, when I use the term emerging affluent families, there's a lot of people, you and I included, that are on an upwards trajectory. We're young enough that we've achieved and seen a little bit of success, but we're also old enough, that or young enough rather, that we're still very much on an upwards trajectory. We are focused on continuing to grow.
I'm glad you think I'm in that circle. Appreciate it. Thank you. But that's cool.
You know what? It's the truth, right? Like, we're not retiring. We're not giving up. We're not tapping out.
No.
Still on an upwards trajectory. And we've seen positive. Like, we're in a different place today than we were 5 years ago and 20 years ago. But
exactly.
Getting there in this emerging affluent family are people that are, business owners for us, at least the people we work with. Business owners often, real estate investors, developers. We do a lot of work with professionals or doctors, for example. But, they're on this trajectory. Their needs are just as complex as the 70-year-old family who, has all kinds of millions and millions of dollars, multiple businesses or multiple assets or multiple properties. So their needs aren't quite as complex, but they're just about there, yet they just don't have as many zeros behind them. And so we are able to come in and help them really put the right pieces in place. And one of the things that we're realizing in these conversations with these emerging affluent families or high net worth business owners, building the wealth is what we do best. It's what you do. It's what I do. Building a business. Those are the things that we we focus on. It's where we spend 98% of our time when it comes to our professional life. But what's evident is as people actually reach the next level and as they start to see that success come their way, if they're in that emerging affluent or high net worth family, they still want to keep pushing. So what they've learned and what we've learned in working with them is that making the money is really the easy part in some ways. Protecting it's the really hard
Keeping
part.
it, right.
That's where, and it doesn't, you can't, keeping it doesn't mean you just put it in your mattress and then walk away and hope things work, right? You've got to protect it in the proper ways. And that's where we do a lot of work with clients from an insurance planning perspective, a tax planning perspective, strategically putting the right portfolios together to take advantage of tax opportunities, savings opportunities, minimize and mitigate their risks so that they're not throwing their money in, tech stocks are great. But if you put everything you have into one tech stock and it goes away, guess what? You're out of luck, right? So you and I have liked playing cards a day or two in our lifetime together. And, if you go all in on something and it doesn't work out, there's no buy-in necessarily.
If you're in the World Series of Poker, you're out, right? You've gone all in, you go all out.
So trying to, it's funny to mention poker actually, but the interesting part about poker is, there's always another tournament. There's not always another opportunity to make the millions that you made or the first million you made. For a lot of people, there can be. But you've got to find this interesting way of protecting your wealth while at the same time giving yourself the opportunity to continue to grow it. And that balance, that line is a very, very tricky line to walk, but it does exist. And there are things that you can do that can give you both opportunities, protect what you have and still grow it at the same time. And that's where, we see a lot of really great things happen, and it allows business owners to continue on and continue doing what they do best while we help protect what they already have.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about your outside of work, your life. So we always talk about what people do for work and their advice to people in sort of what would be your advice, I guess. And I'm kind of guiding this. I'm thinking, obviously you're religious. I would assume still so. I know you were a pastor, right?
Well, I worked within our church for sure.
Right. And so what are some of the things that you would advise people who are, you mentioned, 98% of your time in your professional life is spent on growing your business, but probably 97% of all your time is spent on your business, or a lot of it. So, how do you allocate sort of a balance between sort of your life and your, trying to reach your objectives and, the rest of your life? Obviously you've got a young family like I do. How do you balance that? What are some things that you use to balance that?
Well, I think everybody's got their own answer for that, of course. And I think we've all got our own formula that works. And for me, one of the things that became clear is even as I got married, one of the things we did at the beginning, even while dating, I guess, was we created a date night. My wife was very busy in sales as well. And so Wednesday night was always the night that I was forced to be home and she was forced to be home. And we're home anyways by 7 or 8 most often. But, this time we would make sure we're home by 6. We'd have a nice dinner and turn the TV off or turn the phones off and just hang out. And the difference that made in the beginning and even to this day is
you still do that Wednesday nights?
Not as good at it because we got a 4.5 and a 1.5-year-old.
Right. Yeah.
But we do definitely spend a lot of time together.
It could be a 4-person date night, right?
It's a family date.
Family night. Right. Exactly.
Something else I created for the most part as a rule of thumb was I really do everything I can to avoid weekend work. For me, that's important because I know that I'm the kind of guy that creates habits. And if I create a habit that makes everything I do available every day of the week, it's likely that becomes a takeover moment. And so Arlene and I are very, very clear that our weekends are really personal in nature. We have lots of dinners and meals and times with friends and family and clients, but the truth is we're really, really committed to trying to leave work on the sideline. But I will say I also can accept that because of that might mean that I don't become a billionaire or whatever.
It's a give and take, right? There's a little sacrifice you make one way or the other, right?
The story of anybody's life today, especially those that have come and gone and lived a full life, or those that are at their absolute peak. There's a lot of sacrifices. For every next level you want to take, you've got to make a sacrifice. And for me, I've made sacrifices. I continue to make them. In other areas, I say I've taken full advantage of the opportunities that were given to me in a positive way. But there are certain things I'm just not willing to sacrifice. One of them today is just losing my relationship with my son or my daughter or my wife. And so that's why I'm better personally putting some boundaries in place. Some others might be able to take a better, take an afternoon off on a Tuesday, whereas for some reason it's not something I do very easily. So I'd rather work and do my full work week and have a really long, good, strong work week.
Yeah.
Put out of the bed every night and then have a fully committed weekend with it. But again,
cool.
it might be something totally different. But
yeah. Well, it's teach your own, but at least, I mean, that's good advice. Okay, so we'll end it with one last piece of advice. So if you could go back and talk to Chris Karram in 2001 or 2006, young you, or arguably someone starting out right now, what would be sort of that one piece of advice you would give to the younger you or somebody starting out right now?
Well, there's a lot, and I'm not one of those guys who's naive to say that if I could do anything, I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
I think I'd almost suggest that's arrogant. At the same time, I also appreciate the confidence and the fact that I am where I am because of the decisions I made. So I get both sides of it, except that, I'd be naive to be able to look at the reality I'm living in today and not be able to look back and say, I could have probably done that a little better. So there are a lot of things, but I think one of the key components I've seen personally, where I've seen the most success in my own life or in other people's, is when you can find a way to become really clear on what you're trying to achieve. And for some people, that's all about money. All they want is a certain car or a certain experience or a certain life. For some people, it's they want to build a business that, really puts people first and really actually makes a difference and actually makes a difference in the lives of the people that work there. For some, it's, giving back. For me, it's a little bit of everything I just described. But every time I was able to get really clear for myself and for my family and with my family, I've seen more direct results and more direct benefits by identifying what that vision looked like. And I'm not talking about a vision board, but again, maybe for some that's what it is. But just knowing who I was and what I wanted to accomplish and what my strengths were, what really catapulted me towards the right place. And so it also gives you clarity on what your own personal day should look like, what your own personal needs should look like. And I've lived in a tension where I've owned a couple different businesses and I've had to build different businesses at the same time, and that's good. That's been great, frankly. But I think there's a definite wisdom to being able to. Have you ever met that person when you sit down with them and you ask them like, where do they see themselves, and they just like boom jump into it, and it's like clear, it's articulate.
It's like asking a 4-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, firefighter, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, it's like, yeah, okay, that sounds like, or like, yeah, whatever. They're, I want to be a zoologist, right?
Yeah. And that might be one of my problems over the years is I made a mistake of thinking that I had to, whatever I said today would have to be what it was tomorrow. And the reality is, biting things off in small chunks. I love the 3-year plan. I call it a 3-year vision of motion, which I learned from a guy named Cameron Harold, which is really just the idea of saying 3 years from now, what do we look like? What's our life look like? What do people say about us? What do I say about myself? What does our family members say about us?
Right.
With clients and partners, and like, how are we engaging, as 3 years from now in a perfect world? And yeah, money matters, but that's only one piece of the entire equation. So that motion, that 3-year planning window has proven to be very valuable to us. Something I'm doing in the middle of rewriting again for the following 3 years. And it's just really helped me get clear. But I've seen a lot of clarity from people who said, this is where I want to be one day. This is what I want it to look like. This is what I want for my family. And that clarity just really provides a much clearer map.
The clarity provides clarity.
There you go.
There you go. No, focus is another word for it. Like staying focused on one sort of, or like certain goal or path, and that can change, but having clarity what it is and focused on it. Right. So
I think that's what the difference is. The focus is impossible if you don't know where you're going.
Right.
And your point, you can change, but to be able to at least set a bar,
set the target and then focus on it, kind of thing.
Accordingly, but I think being able to be very clear, like, for me, faith, family, friends are like my 3 kind of big time goals. One of my personal mantras is I want to be better. I want to be inspiring. Every day. I don't do it every day, but for me, I've bought into that. I believe that I can at least work towards that, and so, I think we all come up with different things that matter to us and mean something to us. But for me, it's creating some clarity around what those things look like and how I can, live those out daily allows me to focus that much more. So, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Don't be what? Oh, ask for help. Yeah, for sure.
I've hired coaches. I've been in accountability groups. I've been in. Everyone's been in a networking group of some kind. But the accountability groups I really found to be valuable, where we say this is what we're committing to each other of our own commitment, and then you guys help keep me to this, and I'll keep you. The difference in that has been mind blowing.
We should have you in as a guest. We actually have, that's part of our program, is we offer groups of 10, like call them mastermind groups, like accountability groups for the entrepreneurs going through the process. So they run with our EIRs, the entrepreneurs in residence, basically run a group every day, Monday through Friday, 10 people per group. So bring you in as a guest speaker. So
good thing, brother.
Yeah. Cool. And we'll have to get to a Bills game. We're looking at going this fall. So we're going to get a group of us together. There's part of your friends, family, and
to go to. I think it won't be hard to twist my arm to get there. That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. I think they're playing the Rams one Sunday. So that's my kids' team. Rams, Bills. Yeah. So it's Rory's team. So anyways, cool. Chris, thank you very much for joining me. I know you're pretty busy and it was supposed to be earlier today, but appreciate it. Guys, everyone that's watching, thank you for joining me here on Powered by Backers. Chris, thank you. And we will be out in...
OMG, baby, tell them.